To accurately model the stress inside a bending steel beam, we have to describe continuous matter in a way that remains universally true, regardless of where an observer is standing. We need a mathematical language immune to shifts in perspective. The baseline for this description begins with scalar quantities: mass, density, and temperature. In continuum mechanics, scalars act as zeroth-order tensors. A scalar's numerical value exists completely independently of any coordinate system. Velocity and acceleration possess both magnitude and direction. We classify these as first-order tensors. They are physical, geometric objects that exist in space without needing an XYZ grid to define them. We must draw a strict distinction between the geometric vector itself and the individual numbers we use to measure it. Modeling the internal forces of continuous matter requires taking this concept of absolute invariant objects and scaling it into higher dimensions. When we impose a 3D coordinate basis, E1, E2, and E3, onto our floating vector, we can draw projection lines to the axes. This isolates specific components, V1, V2, and V3. These components are mathematical artifacts. They are dictated entirely by our choice of reference frame. If we shift our perspective and rotate the basis, the numbers wildly recalculate. Yet the physical vector floating in space hasn't moved a millimeter. The mathematical components change, but the physical object does not. Engineers still rely on these coordinate bases. You have to invoke a specific frame of reference to translate abstract physical reality into solvable differential equations. By treating physical quantities as coordinate-free objects, we ensure that our governing field equations remain valid, regardless of which reference frame we eventually choose to solve them. If scalars are zeroth order and vectors are first order, we need to establish what constitutes a second-order tensor. A second-order tensor acts as an active mathematical engine. It is a linear map that takes a vector and physically transforms it into a completely new vector. This map operates under a strict constraint. It must be linear, operating proportionally across added vectors and scalar multiples. Like the scalar and the vector, this second-order tensor map exists entirely independent of any coordinate grid. Inside a physical material, internal forces like a state of stress act as these specific tensor maps. They take existing directional forces and redirect or stretch them through the continuous space. The second-order tensor serves as the universal coordinate-free engine driving transformations in the physical world. Computing these tensor maps across 3 dimensions generates massive equations. Solving them requires a streamlined notational system. Writing the full expansion for a 3D vector is inefficient. Condensing it with a sigma symbol improves this, but remains bulky. Physicists rely on the Einstein summation convention. Striking the sigma entirely reduces the expression to a tight, efficient pair of terms. The rule is absolute. Anytime an index is repeated in a single term, summation from 1 to 3 is automatically assumed. To make this index math function practically, we introduce the Kronecker delta. It operates with a rigid binary output. If 2 indices match, it equals exactly 1. If they differ, it equals 0. This binary rule makes the Kronecker delta a substitution operator. Colliding those j indices absorbs the operator, outputting x sub I. Applying this to our tensor map translates the transformation into computational form. That repeated j index drives the active summation. Einstein summation and the Kronecker delta form the notational engine that allows for the solution of multidimensional problems that would otherwise be unmanageable. Modeling continuous deformation over time requires pushing past basic algebraic maps and executing advanced tensor calculus. The tensor exponential serves as the critical solution to the initial value problems and differential equations generated by continuum mechanics. This text block details Theorem 1.10.5. It demonstrates that calculating the exponential of a tensor in 3-dimensional space requires evaluating explicit mathematical formulas dictated strictly by its specific eigenvalues. Misidentifying those exact eigenvalues means applying the wrong physical boundary conditions to your system. The inverse operation, the tensor logarithm, is equally vital for deriving finite strain from physical deformation. This proof, Theorem 1.10.6, highlights a severe constraint when combining multiple deformations. The sum of tensor logarithms equals the log of their products if and only if the two tensors commute. If you violate this commutativity constraint, the calculation generates imaginary eigenvalues. The model breaks down and detaches from the physics. Advanced calculus operations like these prove that tensors adhere to strict geometric rules, far beyond basic arithmetic. In engineering education, second-order tensors are often introduced as if they are synonymous with multidimensional matrices. A matrix is a two-dimensional array of numbers. In physics, it serves as a collection of components captured relative to a specific observer's coordinate basis. The matrix is simply the shadow cast by the physical tensor onto that specific basis. If we rotate the plane beneath the object, the numbers inside that matrix shadow scramble and recalculate. Yet the three-dimensional tensor object hovering above remains utterly unchanged. A simple rotation changes every single number in a matrix, but the underlying physical state of the material is completely invariant. Writing governing field equations using true tensor notation protects the physics from the arbitrary biases of the observer. Tensors represent a physical state that exists independently of the observer. They allow us to formulate equations of motion and equilibrium that remain valid across every possible frame of reference.